Hello, and welcome to an Elder Scrolls thing. If you're watching this video, you and I have probably been playing a lot of the same game. War Robots, Frontiers. Wait, no, that's just me, never mind. Cool game so far though, if you like big stompy mechs. But the other thing I've been playing, frankly unhealthy amounts of, is the Oblivion Remaster. And I think it's really interesting to consider what it means for the future of the Elder Scrolls franchise and, if we're being honest, the future of Bethesda, and I want to talk about it. But before we get into it, I want to shout out my members. These folks go above and beyond to support the channel, and I'm very grateful to them. Being a member is never required, but always appreciated. Thank you. As I mentioned, I've been playing a lot of the Oblivion Remaster. I'll link the video of my early impressions in the description, but the short of it is that I've been enjoying it. But being an aging Mora boomer, I generally don't fast travel very much, preferring to walk from place to place, and that's given me a lot of time to think about the game while I'm playing it, which is something I rather like to do. That's probably pretty obvious looking at my channel. In any case, I've been thinking about the Elder Scrolls franchise a lot, really ever since, I guess, Skyrim. I could also say Oblivion and I'd probably be right, but we can go with Skyrim. So that's like 14 years that I've been thinking about the Elder Scrolls and considering the trajectory of the franchise. It's been said that your first Bethesda game is always your favorite, and for anyone that started with Morrowind or Oblivion, that almost universally seems to be the case. Anecdotally, I'll admit. But why is that? Why is that the case often enough that it's become a common platitude within the community? Nostalgia, I'm sure, factors in a pretty big way, but I think it's more than that. In my years of thinking about the franchise, I've truly come to believe that Bethesda's ambition has been falling away from us, or maybe just changing focus to crap we don't really care about. And when I have thoughts like this, I look for data to either back me up or refute my claim entirely. Since I'm in the fortunate position to be able to put up a poll and get a decent number of replies, thank you for that by the way, I did just that, asking if people's first Bethesda game is also their favorite. And these are the results after 473 responses. Unless things have changed dramatically from when I pulled this screenshot of the results, one's first Bethesda game is their favorite 47% of the time, and people ended up preferring a game older than their first 33% of the time, leaving only 20% of people who prefer a Bethesda game that is newer than their first, which I just want to make the takeaway from that really clear. Only 20% of players that responded to this poll have found Bethesda's later releases to be bigger and better. It's an imperfect sampling, to be sure, but it's not really a great result for Bethesda. But one point of reference, and especially an informal internet poll, is not enough to draw conclusions. And in this case, that means we have to turn to Metacritic and user reviews. I am aware that both Metacritic and Steam reviews are highly imperfect, but they're about as objective as we have access to regarding player and critic sentiment, so that's what I'm using. I apologize. To myself even. By the way, if you've tabbed out, I'll be showing a chart periodically for the next few minutes, just in case you care, no pressure. To figure out if I'm talking out of my big beautiful behind or if I'm actually onto something, I plotted out each of Bethesda's Bethesda-style games. That means I'm ignoring all of the Wayne Gretzky and Terminator games they did back in the 90s, and IHRA Professional Drag Racing 2005. To be clear, I am doing them an enormous favor by leaving these games off the list. So, join me as we go through each game, briefly. Arena, released in 1994, was the first of what one might today call a Bethesda-like, and at the time, the sandbox style wasn't unheard of among Western CRPGs, but the popular trend was more towards the more linear style that is perhaps best exemplified by Baldur's Gate, which was released 4 years later. Still, Arena got pretty decent reviews, landing at 88 on Metacritic and 81 on Steam. Wait, Steam? Yes, Steam. Arena is actually available for free on Steam. It's very dated, but it's there with all its warts, and I really applaud that. Thanks, Bethesda. And the same can be said of Daggerfall, which released 2 years after Arena. Daggerfall is pretty widely regarded as simply being superior to Arena in basically every way, with critics giving it an extremely solid 90. And as for modern audiences, Daggerfall has become more approachable than ever thanks to Daggerfall Unity, and has a comfortable 86% positive on Steam. Don't use the GOG cut. Battlespire and Redguard would fit into the timeline here, but I'm electing to ignore them because they're spin-offs, and they're drastically different games. Since we're talking about Bethesda-likes, they're just not pertinent at the moment. I will also be skipping Fallout 76 in a bit for the very same reason. Which brings us to Morrowind, my first and personal favorite. Critics gave it an 89, while modern slanting audiences have graced it with a coveted 95. It's clearly a fan favorite. And Morrowind shares this rating with Oblivion, though this time critics agreed, bringing it all the way to an 89, the series' highest critical performance yet. It was also Bethesda's largest financial success at the time, dwarfing the frankly resounding success that was Morrowind. Fallout 3 is an interesting point on the chart because we see a pretty large gap between the critic and player scores. It scored a very respectable 93 with critics, but the score on Steam has fallen to 80 over the years as the game has become progressively harder to run on modern computers. Bethesda games have always been buggy, and Oblivion was all of its various flavors of weird, but Fallout 3 was really when I remember the Bugthesda memes hitting turbo overdrive, and it deserves that reputation. Much like the next release, Fallout New Vegas, where we again see a gap between critic score and Steam score. But this time, the critic score is a lowly 84, just 1 point shy of the goal Bethesda had for Obsidian to get a large bonus. That single point is probably responsible for their closure. Kind of wild to think, isn't it? Your entire livelihood hinging on the very weird monster that is Metacritic. Anyway, while both Fallout games were wildly buggy, New Vegas has been lovingly adopted by the modding community in a way that Fallout 3 has not, allowing it to remain playable with a bunch of mods and patches and stuff. This has led to players on Steam raising the score to 96 over the years. And next, love it or hate it, or whatever weirdness I have for it, Skyrim. Metacritic and Steam both give it a 94, which is very good, but I think it's safe to say that no matter which Bethesda game in your favorite, Skyrim has proven to be an inflection point for Bethesda. Skyrim was an enormous leap in presentational fidelity, the sound, visuals, physics, all that stuff. But the Mora boomers cried foul. Anyway, it's still pretty good. Fallout 4, though, was really when things started to kinda turn on Bethesda, with the critic score falling all the way to 88 and Steam down to 83. Yeah, they're still both really high, but looking on the graph, it's a noticeable decline from a pretty solid track record. And Starfield is pretty predictable, with the Steam score plummeting all the way to 58, while the critic score is an 85. Still handily the lowest, ignoring the Elder Scrolls spin-offs, but still pretty high. Look, I'm not going to ignite the flames of conspiracy, but it's pretty wildly off, right? Like, I've played Starfield. I have 375 hours in it. I like it? I have complicated and nuanced opinions on it that I plan to someday discuss on this very YouTube channel, but I would not call it a good game for most people. It appeals to a small group of very specific weirdos. I say this with the utmost affection. Some of you have probably already left an opinionated comment on the matter, but here's the chart without New Vegas. You may pointlessly debate the validity of New Vegas being included in this group in the comments if you wish. Keep it civil. And now I get to do my nerdy business analyst bit of saying numbers and using them to make a point. And what better way to do that than trend lines? And yep, that's a trend alright. I've actually included the R² because it's way higher with Obsidian's contribution removed, and that's really funny to me. Anyway, it's clear that the old saying that your first Bethesda game and your favorite has something behind it. The reception to the studio's output has been declining, and I think Bethesda is seeing the same thing. Which finally brings us back to the Oblivion Remaster, which you may remember first being revealed in a legal document from Microsoft projecting out what kind of returns the then pending purchase of Bethesda would bring in. The document was discovered in 2023, is dated 2020, and claims that Oblivion Remastered was slated to launch in 2022, though they were also expecting Starfield to come out the year before. So since neither of those things happened, the potential strategic role of the Oblivion Remaster has also changed. Also, real quick side note, they also projected that TES 6 would be out in 2024 as well as a Fallout 3 remaster, because why not, right? Just go in chronological order. By the time a hypothetical Fallout 3 remaster or TES 6 actually come out, Skyrim will probably be ripe for another juicing by slapping an even newer coat of paint on it. But the way I see it, the Oblivion Remaster releasing at the time it did actually gives Bethesda an incredible opportunity, if they take it. The market is constantly changing. Gamers want new. Gaming is, unfortunately, an incredibly consumption-focused hobby. We're constantly churning through new stuff to find our next biggest hit. We're addicted to new. That's why we have annualized releases and live service games and flashy animations on loot boxes. And it's why the industry chases trends. The AAA space is always trying to produce the biggest hotness, because that's where the money is. And the studios are beholden to the publishers who are beholden to the stockholders who want that money. A remaster of a beloved old game is a pretty easy bet to make, and stockholders love easy bets. So why not make some easy money, right? Well, it took much longer than projected, which can often lead to cancellations, and yet it still survived Microsoft's purchase. Which makes me think that the Oblivion Remaster became more than just a product. I think it's a test. Perhaps it's a test for the technology of linking the old Gamebryo base with Unreal Engine 5 for graphics, but that could just be done internally and evaluated that way. There's no need to release every technology prototype you put resources into. No, I think the remaster would be best used by Bethesda as a test to see how today's players react to their older approach to gameplay mechanics and systems. A complaint many of us old heads have had about Bethesda games is that they're being streamlined to the point of losing what used to make them so special. The old games had some rough edges, but that was where they thrived. Finding crafty ways to do things with a tool other than the most obvious one feels really good. And then couple that with the emergent narrative and freedom, and even direct encouragement of the older games to go get lost and find adventure. So either Bethesda is too proud to be humbled by Starfield's abysmal reception, and they'll continue down their path of frankly seemingly not understanding the games they make, or they'll look at the Oblivion Remaster and see what's resonating with modern players. People are enjoying it all over again. New players even. I've gotten comments on my own videos about the remaster where I don't even bash on Bethesda, but they say things like, "You guys weren't lying when you said they lost something with Skyrim." And if you're among those new players of Oblivion, hey, welcome. There's something you can learn from this release too. This is proof of something I say all the time. A good game is good forever. Sometimes you need to adjust your expectations of an older game and get used to a bit of jank here and there, and sometimes even getting them to run can be a bit of an involved process, but if a game was considered good back then, chances are really high it's still good now. So get out there, play some of the old greats. Forget modern AAA and play the greats from the PS1 and PS2. Play some 90s arcade racers. Explore the collection of bizarre oddities that is the Dreamcast's entire library. Play the original Quake and get creamed by someone in their 40s that's never played anything else. And then, go explore indies. That's where the real game changers come from. Everything AAA chases starts with some nerd writing a game in their bedroom. Most of the time. Seriously, there's cool stuff coming out all the time from the little guys. Almost every niche is serviced by someone. If you're growing disillusioned with gaming, there's still plenty of good art at cheaper price points. The summer blockbusters have big budgets, but that doesn't mean they have the creativity and flexibility to do anything with a new idea. By the way, because I know someone was hoping for it, here's that chart from before but with all of the games. I'll also share it in my Discord, which is linked below. The two spin-offs stand out really starkly, but the scores for Fallout 76 versus Starfield are... Man, I already said I'm not one to stoke the flames of a conspiracy theory, but... What's going on there? That don't seem quite right, is all I'm saying. And if you're still here, thank you for listening to my rambling self and maybe leaving a comment on some vaguely salient point I made. This is meant as a conversation starter, after all. And while you're down there, if you dig the vibe, like and subscribe. But at the end of the day, thank you very much just for stopping by and lending me your ear. And, as always, have a great one.